Hello there.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Jedi Knights. I'm your moderator, Christian Buckley, joined by my Chewie from not so far away, but at least 6 feet apart.
At least 6 feet apart. Yeah, we're social distancing over here.
Yes.
Maybe this is extreme social distancing.
Yeah, we could probably ease up a little bit, you know?
Yeah. We can get 7 feet
Yeah.
next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. As we talked about last week, keeping occupied, dipping into Star Wars for some quarantine R&R, you know?
Yeah. What have you been? Have you been consuming any Star Wars media?
So of course we've been doing our Clone Wars watch along. That's always nice to just save that night. You know, it's like, oh, tonight's the Clone Wars night. You know.
True. Yeah. You just bust through 6 episodes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. But continuing that Millennium Falcon puzzle, that's the thing. That's the thing I've been dipping back to.
Are you making good progress or?
The border is complete, and let me tell you, that's an achievement because the border is just space.
Oh, really? It's just probably black and stars, huh?
Black and stars everywhere.
So is it like the Millennium Falcon in space? Can you describe it?
So it's the majority of it is the Falcon diagonal shooting up.
Okay.
In the background of the Falcon, you have Vader made out of stardust, purples and deep maroons and blacks.
Okay.
Which is very cool. Bottom left, you have the episode 4 cast in their typical poses, and lots of X-wings and TIE fighters. So it's cool. I like it.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, we'll grace the set here.
Yeah. So how do you put that in a frame? I think I asked you this 2 weeks ago, but
yeah. So I'm pretty sure you have to have some spray adhesive that you just spray over it. You let it rest for a day, and then you can put it in a poster frame.
Oh, you just spray it over once you complete it, basically.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. But you've also been doing some Star Warsy things to keep you occupied. You were telling me about.
That's true. Yeah. Today I spent most of today playing Knights of the Old Republic, and so yeah, I'm starting a new game of that. Mm-hmm. It's a good one. Christian, you've only played Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Yes,
as I understand it.
Yeah, and with that, I own 1 and 2 because I picked them up on a Steam sale once, and I never realized my Mac could run them. So, one day I was like, "Oh, hey, I'll just try 2," and I played the first 3 hours. I think I escaped the prison space station and then called it. But it's definitely cool. It's interesting looking back to an RPG almost turn-based of that time.
Almost definitely turn-based. The combat, at least.
Yeah. Because I never knew that about it. I always thought it was more of an action Star Wars game that we're used to. It just had RPG progression. I didn't know it was turn-based combat, which is sometimes typical for RPGs, which really surprised me as someone who's always been wondering why we don't just mess around and make a turn-based Star Wars RPG.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's already been done, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how are you liking it? Is this your a revisit? You said going back to it, right?
Yeah. So I've played it as a kid and stuff, and since as well. But yeah, I have it on Xbox, so the original Xbox disc. So I've just been playing it on my Xbox One.
Very nice.
Yeah,
get those those upgrades.
What upgrades?
Doesn't the Xbox One do a buff to old games? It at least makes them look crisp, you know?
Oh yeah. I think it is one of those. It looks really nice and it runs really well. It did freeze on me today though, which was sad.
Well, yeah, it's cool that you're enjoying that, and as a fellow consumer of games, I have definitely considered looking into Star Wars games of the past to revisit.
You should stream it, Christian.
I just might. Oh, you know what? That actually reminded me. So, a recent game I streamed on twitch.tv/joyclicks, which you should totally check out, was The Mummy. It was a PS1 game that I had in my living room after the local Blockbuster closed 11 or 15 years ago. Never touched it. But I also, from that Blockbuster, obtained a game called Star Wars Demolition. And I played it like once, and I don't think I could appreciate it then, but I could now. It's basically like a demolition derby on Tatooine, and you get to play as like just Star Wars characters riding around in all the different like land speeders. I think Boba Fett's in there, and you can just use his jetpack and you just blow stuff up.
Interesting.
So maybe I'll dip into that.
Yeah, you should dip into that. Honestly, I find it funny that you got on a sale both KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2, and you only played KOTOR 2. Yeah. What was the rationale behind that?
So I believe... so a while back, there was a rumor that Chris Avallone, who wrote KOTOR 2, I think was attached to maybe write Fallen Order? I don't remember. I don't think... It was definitely a Star Wars game. I forget which one, but I was like, hey, I want to see what this guy's... portfolio is like. So I checked out KOTOR 2 to look at the writing, and it's a well-written game, I can say that for sure, but yeah, that's why I went there over 1, despite what I knew about 1. Like I like Revan, his design and stuff like that, but
that makes sense. I wasn't sure if there was a real reasoning behind it.
It was just curiosity, really.
Interesting, but okay.
Yeah. And funny enough, we are going to be doing a kind of retrospective deep dive for the first half of the show on another Star Wars video game that we will get to in just a moment. But first, we do have a news story to bring up, sort of a follow-up to a discussion we had last week about Cassian Andor. According to an interview with the special effects supervisor Neil Scanlon, which was conducted via comicbookmovie.com, the Cassian Andor series was 6 weeks into pre-production before the whole epidemic suspended production on pretty much everything. So, not like huge news here, because we were kind of speculating last week that because Cassian just brought on a production designer, that pre-production work could still be going on. We didn't know what stage they were in, but we now know via someone who works on the show 6 weeks in.
That's not that long. That's really not that long.
Yeah, because you have to wonder, like, 6 weeks pre-production, are they counting like story meetings as pre-production here? Are the scripts done? Like, did Tony Gilroy do his thing already? Do we have an outline? Like,
I feel like that would mean the scripts are done, but I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess we don't know whether or not they have like a script or a story really like fully fleshed out yet. Mm-hmm. Do you know how long like TV shows are average in pre-production? Like,
I don't have a solid idea, but I
will
say
from your own experience,
maybe like 12 weeks, maybe.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the production. Like, I know with most shows that go into like a Christmas winter hiatus, they usually take late spring to go into pre-production for production in the fall. Sometimes, like, it really depends case to case on what the schedule is, but for serialized television, I believe that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, we also don't know when they're planning on releasing this, right?
Yeah, because we don't know when they're shooting it either.
Yeah, so, like, everything's up in the air. I feel like we should just give them their time, you know?
Yeah.
It's all speculation now.
Mm-hmm. And, like, both of us are really excited for Cassian. I'm sure Diego Luna is very excited to go back to that character.
Yeah, and Alan Tudyk.
Yeah. So when we get it, I'll be very happy. Him being one of my standouts of the Disney era so far. But yeah, I'm with you. They're gonna take their time, do what you have to do, you know, to
make it good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not worried, but just an interesting little addendum to last week.
Would you rather have this show first or Obi-Wan first?
I think this.
Same.
Because like with Obi-Wan, because it was a little tumultuous recently, like really take that time, really just go in on, I think especially because of a planet like Tatooine, like lean in on the landscapes and production design and level of like intensity there, where Cassian can be shot like a drama,
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'd rather see Cassian first.
But yeah, just thought we would throw that update out there for those curious about what we talked about last week, because it was even more up in the air last week in terms of what's coming when, what's going on with everything. But well, we know Mando is hopefully going to be within like 1 month of what they said. Cassian is it's got some steam going.
I think we're definitely going to see Mando this year still.
I do too. I just think it could slip into November instead of October.
Even later, maybe.
Yeah. So that does it for Disney Plus and news, though. So like we said, light news week, which is why we're going to have a discussion about, honestly, I feel like a pretty big piece of Star Wars history.
Definitely. That's very true.
Because, like, Mike, I'm sure you remember this time in our childhood where Episode 3 came out, and it was like, oh, the story's complete now. I guess Star Wars is done.
And there was still such a thirst for more,
Yeah, and, like, I don't know when rumors of the Clone Wars series came around. There were rumors of Star Wars Underworld in, like, 2010.
True, yeah. Was that the TV show?
Yeah, that was the live-action TV show that...
With the test footage, yeah.
Yes, that we talked about a couple months ago. But Star Wars video games, I think, were, for us at least, something we looked to continue the fandom. Like there were the Lego games, there was Battlefront, there was a lot of Star Wars content for us.
Agreed.
Even past the Xbox PS2 gen, where there were like monoliths like the KOTOR, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something I think really specific about the vibe, the time, and so many other factors about Star Wars The Force Unleashed.
Definitely. Yep.
That really just make it something else, and it's a weird pillar of that era.
Do you think it might have to do with the fact that we were like kids at the time? Or like are we clouded by our own nostalgia here? That's not the Jedi way.
No. I think it's a valid thing to bring up, but yeah. I could see that line of thought with the Lego games, because I think there's so much nostalgia there, with just the way those presented that story for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like with the marketing and the advertising and just general air of the way LucasArts presented The Force Unleashed, that really made it feel like almost a new era for Star Wars.
I agree, yeah. I think it had to do with the fact, a lot of part of it had to do with the marketing, in my opinion.
Mm.
Which was, it kind of sold itself as like a become a Jedi kind of like video game, similar to Fallen Order, which is probably why it did so well.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I remember like I must have been in a GameStop when I don't know how old I was. It came out in 2008, so probably like sometime in 2007. I was around 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
In a GameStop, and then on the TV, I see a Star Destroyer that gets just pulled out of the atmosphere by the Force, and that's like nothing we ever saw in the movies before. At the time, the graphics looked like cutting edge, you know?
Yeah, truly though. I mean, it was something that we didn't know we wanted until we saw it.
Yeah, and I think especially you and I both watched I think the reveal teaser trailer, which was the hooded character pulling the Star Destroyer out of the sky, and then the launch trailer. And again, going into the marketing, they really pushed this as being an untold story in the saga, where it fleshed out the hunting of the Jedi. It gave Vader a secret apprentice, so that gave us a new way to look at and appreciate the character of Vader. And I think because of that, it also really felt like, oh, we're filling the gap with video games now. You know, like we're telling stories like Uncharted with The Force Unleashed.
Unfortunately, it was like, other than like The Force Unleashed 2, it was basically like the only 2 video games that bridged the gap. Like they basically stopped making video games after these, like Star Wars video games.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying, with Force Unleashed 2, it was a little less positively received.
True.
Because I think Force Unleashed 1, while I haven't played in a while, it could have aged horribly, but it definitely goes for something that was popular. I think probably it was on the tail end of the character action games that were doing really well, like God of War, and I guess Devil May Cry 4 probably was around that time. But cranking up the Force abilities, and I really do think there's something about the imagery of ripping a Star Destroyer out of space that just set the tone for LucasArts being a branch of Lucasfilm saying, hey, the movies are done, now it's time to get weird and like fill in the side stories.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I think the coolest part is you actually get to do that.
Yeah.
like you get to do that in the video game, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think, like, in hindsight, incredibly cartoony, you know?
Oh, so cartoony. Yeah. All right, do you want to talk about the plot?
Sure, yeah, let's dive into this thing. Force Unleashed is a story about Darth Vader's secret apprentice.
Technically his second apprentice. In the old canon.
Yeah. Starkiller is his code name. His full name, I believe, is Galen Marek. Which, again, we've seen these names appear in the new canon as well. Starkiller Base, obviously, and Galen Erso from Rogue One. But Starkiller is portrayed physically and by performance by Sam Witwer, who we've also seen branch out to other Star Wars content. He is the voice of Darth Maul in Clone Wars.
And a great one at that.
Yeah, he owns that character.
Yeah,
like,
he does.
In such a great way. He really sold me on sort of Darth Maul 2.0, which I've sort of pitched him as on the show.
It's true though. It's not the Phantom Menace Darth Maul, that's for sure.
Not at all. And I think it's such a more interesting character now. But as far as I know, Starkiller was his entry into the Star Wars canon.
Really? I mean, whenever I listen to like Sam Witwer's voice acting, it always reminds me of Starkiller, which makes sense because he voiced him. So.
And it's really cool. Honestly, if you don't follow him on Twitter, I recommend it because he streams Star Wars games sometimes. He's very active in the fandom and community still. But if the story follows him and basically the character acting as a proto-inquisitor in this old canon where Vader is sending him to exterminate the remaining Jedi who escaped the Purge. And I guess starting there, it's so interesting seeing the story change drastically from this take on the timeline to the current canon.
You're saying like, the plot of the Force Unleashed versus what we actually got with Disney.
Also Clone Wars, like filling in the gap of what and I guess Rebels more so than Clone Wars, like
Yeah.
what that in between was like, because here we see it's this one guy. It was Vader for a while, then he trained basically a lapdog to just go out and kill everybody else.
Right.
Where now it's the Inquisitors.
True. I mean, so here's a question. Like you said, Starkiller is kind of like a proto Inquisitor. But do you like the Disney canon Inquisitors more than like this?
So I feel like honestly you're probably the person to answer that question with more weight, because I still haven't seen Rebels, but my experience with the Inquisitors beyond that one guy with the long head and the red tattoos on his face and just knowing that the guy looks like that is
the Grand Inquisitor.
Sure, yeah. The sisters from Fallen Order.
Right.
And I honestly, like, I can put them in a similar camp to how I felt about Starkiller. But with Starkiller, I think it's just so much more interesting in the fact that it's Vader's apprentice.
Yeah. I think that's true. Like, he's got his own. They have like that personal connection, and like when you look at like the Disney Inquisitors, like they are trained by Vader, but like they're not. Like, it's not like a master and apprentice kind of thing. It's just like you're a subordinate. Mm-hmm. Like they all like Vader basically like tortures the like Jedi into being Inquisitors, and I mean, like, it's not like he doesn't torture Starkiller in this, because he definitely does, but like it definitely has that more just like there are only two, a master and apprentice kind of thing.
For sure. And for me, like, I think there's so much potential with just from taking a step back, looking at the idea of giving Vader an apprentice that he hides from Palpatine. And I think even with the Inquisitors, there is still an interesting story to tell there, if you want to paint Vader as someone who became aware that he was expendable to a certain degree,
True. I always wondered, like, what happened to Vader, like, when Emperor Palpatine found out that he had an apprentice,
Yeah, so based on my memory, I remember, I think there's multiple endings to The Force Unleashed, but...
Yeah, does it get answered in one of the endings?
I'm pretty sure Vader disowns you at a certain point, and then, like, he just sort of, like, runs to Palpatine to, like, cover his tracks. I think something like that happens. But, yeah, I feel like Vader in this game, if we want to touch on that for a second, is interesting because I feel like the Vader we've had recently kind of paints him more, at least from our experience watching all the Star Wars content on this show, it kind of portrays him in a way that's, like, not sympathetic, but, like, he was duped and did this for reasons that seemed right to him,
Yeah, I don't think sympathetic is necessarily, like, the wrong word to use. I think when you're watching the Clone Wars and then you watch the prequels and then you see his Anakin's fall, like, there is something, like, very human in it, and, like, it's hard not to, like, sympathize with him and see how he could be corrupted, and how really, like, any of us in those situations could be, like, we all get, each of us have our flaws, and Anakin's definitely one of those, and we can all see ourselves in that. But, like, in The Force Unleashed, it seems like it was just like Vader was just like a caricature of evil, more or less.
Yeah, and I have to wonder, like, based on what you said, I think, like, pushing to make Vader seem more human, or at least the reasoning of Anakin, at a certain degree, because of how calculating Palpatine was, kind of makes him come across as a little dumb. Anakin? Is that fair to say? Well, like, Anakin and then in turn Vader.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely, like, impressionable.
Yeah.
So...
Because I think this game's take on Vader is so much more ambitious and, like, not prideful, but he's aware, like, he recognizes what happened. I don't know if, like you said, it's a caricature of just a bad guy, or if he's so deep in at this point where he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I did slip up, but can't go back now.
Yeah, like he just doubles down on it.
Yeah, because that's sort of the vibe that we get from him in 6, right? Like when he's talking to Luke, he's like, it's too late for me.
That's true.
But regardless, I do think it's an interesting way to look at him where he does have a failsafe for the day the Emperor turns on him because of Starkiller. And I just think that's so interesting compared to modern Vader that I wonder how this story could either be adapted or just shows a completely different mindset to that character.
I mean, there's still time in the canon for Vader, like the current canon for Vader to have an apprentice. Like, there's no reason why he couldn't, you know?
Yeah,
But,
I just mean more of like, is current canon Vader, does he have the foresight for this? You know?
yeah, true. Yeah, I guess you're right. They make him out to seem like he just got like duped essentially. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you're right. Like, I guess when I see Vader's ambition and stuff like that, that's something I already associated with him.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, just his plotting and everything. You know, in the original trilogy, like, he has a lot to say about, you know, military tactics and also strategy. And so
Sure,
I
yeah.
kind of always associated those things with him. So I guess, in my opinion, like, I sympathize more, and I don't want to say I like the new canon Vader better, but like, it's just for me, like, this Vader in The Force Unleashed is not as convincing, and it's not as captivating to me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just think this take on him is more like aware, I guess. And I do think what we're talking about with the character of Starkiller and the subplot is interesting, and honestly, I kind of want to see it adapted to the new canon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting, and like, that's not to say that I don't like Vader in this. Like, I like Vader all the time. Like, let's just be real. But like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think this, they could, you know, the Disney can take some cues from this. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth exploring. I think maybe if they wanted to do that Vader Plus show, they could center it around Starkiller, and just have Vader be like the ancillary leader, I guess, and retool.
They should make a Vader Disney Plus show.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like, I guess tying it back to the story of Force Unleashed, sorry. Like,
Force Awakens.
Yeah. they would have to make a fair amount of changes, I think, if they wanted to bring it in, because there's so much like canon answers that happen in this game. I don't know if you remember some of them, but like,
True.
Starkiller's family crest inspired the crest of the rebellion. Like, he helped form the rebellion.
Yeah. Darth Maul's in this game, like, for some reason, right?
Is he?
Oh wait, no, he's not in this game.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, he's
I
yeah.
do remember.
No, I'm reading the synopsis right now to refresh my memory, and it's just somebody takes the shape of Darth Maul.
Gotcha.
Yeah, never mind.
And it's funny because we see Star Wars today be so strict about their canon, and like, even Battlefront has to be canon, you know, like, I feel like they eased up on it a little bit with Battlefront 2, but I remember that first one, it's like, no. Well, I guess it's like this now, kind of like, clones can only be played on Geonosis maps or prequel era planets, you know.
Felucia only.
Yeah. You want to play as clone troopers on Ilum? No. Like, this game messes with that so much. Like, I remember there was DLC. I don't know if it was canon or not at the time, but like, you could go hunt Luke on Hoth.
Really?
Yeah, it was in like the Ultimate Sith edition, I think. Do you remember that one?
I don't think I had that one.
So that's another thing. We'll get to that in a second. But I think on the PS3, you could get the Ultimate Sith edition, and he had this badass armor. It had like claws on it. It looked like a Knight of Ren almost.
Interesting.
But I think there was a DLC mission where you went to the hangar in Hoth and you fought Luke.
Yeah, I'm reading. It's actually on the Wikipedia page right now. I'm reading about it. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure there was like an Obi-Wan thing, like you could fight Obi-Wan maybe. There was a lot of
there's one on there's one on Tatooine, but you have to fight Obi-Wan.
Yeah, see, that's like modern day Star Wars game. Unless you're like Galaxy of Heroes, there's no way they're messing with the canon and crossover that much.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if that's actually canon, because it doesn't happen in the movies or anything. It's supposed to happen like right at the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think like that was DLC. So maybe the DLC was like side stories, and then the story they tell with Starkiller and Ramkota and Vader and the Emperor is at the time canon, because like technically it doesn't counter any of the existing canon at that time.
Right.
And obviously LucasArts published it, so like and I think George Lucas did the story for it. So
yeah, he did.
I guess it would have been canon, at least the main campaign.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Maybe not the downloadable content. I think the main campaign is for sure, or was.
Yeah. Do you remember the droid?
No.
The droid, I always loved this droid, and I don't think we've ever seen any droid like it again, but I thought it was so cool. I'm on the Wikipedia page. It said his name was Proxy. I forgot that about him.
Is it the one that like it shapeshifts, right?
Yeah, so
yeah.
It's basically a skeleton, like a mechanical skeleton, kind of looks like 3PO without the armor on. Mm-hmm. And he projects the holograms of whoever he's like FaceTiming with. So like he can present himself as Vader, use the voice, and transmit the message that Vader is sending to his apprentice. And he can do that with anybody. And I always thought that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. They should bring that back.
They should, yeah. Because, like, we have the two major ways of communicating now in Star Wars are holograms and Force time. Right?
Yeah, but only like two people can Force time.
Yeah, so why not give another way to do it?
That's true.
Through
conventional droid means.
Yeah, if holograms are cellular, this should be iMessage. Because you get that real bump in quality.
Yeah, true. It's the FaceTime audio of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you think about the actual like gameplay of this? Like the way that it feels, like the combat and stuff.
From memory, I thought it was fun because they really emphasized the Force. It's in the title, The Force Unleashed. Mm-hmm. They really emphasized Force powers, and I remember the physics was a big deal, like going into the game. Mm-hmm. The destruction, the fact that you could like throw your lightsaber at things and it would slice through anything, almost anything.
Yeah, like crates and stuff and people.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was a mission on the Death Star where you could like use the Force to like grab one of the TIE fighters and just like swing it around. And like the stormtroopers ragdoll if you lift them up. So like I remember it being very fun, again comical in almost a ridiculous sense.
Right. It's like yeah. What are you gonna say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say it was fun at the time. I think it probably wouldn't hold up now, and the control of the Force stuff I think is sticking out to me as not being the best.
To me, it was really like hack and slash. I feel like there was no strategy to it, unlike Fallen
Mm-hmm.
Order.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a negative for me. But like at the time, it was fun. Like to just like whip a lightsaber around and like. Do you remember like all like the little things that you had to like find and like you had to? I don't know. They were like I forget if they were like holocrons or something like that.
I don't really remember collectibles. I do remember getting the different lightsabers though, but
yeah, no, there were like other collectibles that you can get, and like
mm-hmm.
they were hidden like in every level, and like it was pretty cool. It was like almost open in that sense that you can just like jump up to like a scaffolding and like find holocron or something like that. But
yeah, I want to bring this up. I was going to probably like 5 minutes ago, but I forgot. This game had several different versions. Do you remember that?
No.
So, get this. It released on iOS, the N-Gage, Nintendo DS, PS2, PS3, PSP, the Wii, Xbox 360, Mac, and Windows.
The N-Gage?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember the N-Gage. It was a Nokia smartphone. So, obviously, smartphones weren't running the 360 version, but there were several different versions of this game. I didn't play the standard one that LucasArts made. That was the PS3 360 one until later. Because at first I played the PS2 version.
Yeah, I played the 360 version from the get-go. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, so I remember the 360 PS3 version, which I ended up playing eventually. It looked better. That was the one with the amazing physics. That was the one that really pushed destructible environments and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the PS2 version, which was developed by Chrome Studios, was the same one that released on the Wii. And I remember that game being ugly.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I kind of want to look it up, like just like some footage or just a photo or something like that.
Yeah. Like,
what?
I was just going to say, it's very clearly a PS2 game.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all like the same plot and stuff though, right?
Yeah, same story. I think the scope of certain environments was a little different, and like
I'm sure
some of the mechanics, probably like less enemies, less particle effects, but yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
This game just holds, it's very nostalgic in the sense that like I remember playing that. This is a lot as a kid.
For sure, yeah. And I think it's really fun looking back at it because it's such a different era where we kind of kicked off the discussion about as far as like, could you imagine if current Lucasfilm allowed something like this? Because while it was written by Lucas, like looking back at it and talking through the story and the fact that it was about a secret apprentice that turned to the light after he blinded a Jedi and fell in love with his pilot and all that kind of stuff, like it sounds like fan fiction.
It does, but it's
the crazy thing.
It's straight from the mind of George Lucas.
Yeah, which is honestly why I kind of want to see it repurposed for this new canon and make it fit in with what is the Star Wars timeline now.
This game is pretty dark too.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty gruesome.
How could I forget? We completely breezed over this. The opening of this game, do you remember that?
On Kashyyyk?
Yeah, you're playing as Vader.
Yeah. And you're just like you're cutting down like your own stormtroopers and stuff.
Yeah, you're just like killing Wookiees. You can throw that lightsaber, cut down trees.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Talk about destructible environment.
Yeah. So the game has an interesting legacy, I think. It really emphasized scale, Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Like, there was a lot of like collectibles that I remember, and like the level design was really intricate and like pretty vast for that time. And it was a long game from what I remember as well.
Yeah, it definitely took me a while.
Yeah, but like it was fun. It was a good. I don't know. It was good. It was a good Star Wars game for those who are into it.
Yeah, and I want to honestly like leading up to Fallen Order. I was a little worried that it was just going to be if they made Force Unleashed in 2019, because while I have a nostalgia for this game and it was just a blast playing it as a kid, I don't know if that's the game I'd want from modern Star Wars games, No,
I think Fallen Order is the best Star Wars game ever made.
It's up there for sure.
Yeah, in my opinion,
it's really good.
In my opinion, it's the best one. but that it's just completely set a new bar.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't ever go back to like the type of combat mechanics that are in The Force Unleashed. It's just not as satisfying and it's not as challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, obviously Disney is just taking Star Wars in a different way anyway, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, we both enjoy the Disney Star Wars, and yeah, I wouldn't want to see this now, but it was good for when it was.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm pretty sure. Like, I want to ask you though, where Fallen Order was really, if you look at interviews with the developers, like Stig, everyone at Respawn basically said like, there's no red lightsaber. We're not doing that. It's a Jedi story.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think after EA saw the success and reception and like overwhelming positivity to Fallen Order that they wouldn't ignore the market for a Sith game like Fallen Order?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that that's something that will happen, but what I would rather see is them take Fallen Order in a way that turns that way.
Ooh, okay.
That's my opinion.
Because, yeah, I think, like, if the story they're telling with Fallen Order is, end of the day, Cal Kestis tried his best, didn't work out, went to hiding, something like that, I could really see Respawn either set up a second team or use the, like, philosophy of the design of Fallen Order and repurpose a story maybe like this, maybe about an Inquisitor in a Sith action game in the style of Fallen Order, just so like it's not Fallen Order 1, 2, 3 within like 2 years of each other each. So that way you do have a bit of variety. But if ideal scenario for you, they want to repurpose the Star Killer character arc.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather see it in a Fallen Order-esque game, or would you want to see it in a different medium altogether, like a TV show or something like that?
I would want to see it in a different medium. I think if they're going to continue doing games and stuff, I want it to be different. Like I don't want like The Force Unleashed like redone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I liked Fallen Order so much, because it was, you know, different than anything else that they've really put out.
Mm-hmm. It matured.
Yeah, totally matured. So yeah, I would want to see. I would like them to do something like this. Honestly, I think I would even be okay with them doing it in like a comic book or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe that's just because I'm into the comic books now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Either a comic book or a TV show, and I'd want to see them take a different approach with a Sith video game. I think they could do that differently.
Yeah. I agree. I would not say no to like a remaster of Force Unleashed 1 and 2 just to go back to it.
Definitely not.
But yeah, such an interesting era, you know.
Definitely.
And it was really fun looking back at it.
Yeah.
So.
And we got to do more of these.
Oh, absolutely. We're gonna for sure talk about more Star Wars games in the coming weeks and future episodes. But
for sure. Shall we move to the Clone Wars episodes?
We shall, because this week when we watched the 8 episodes of the acclaimed Star Wars: The Clone Wars, we watched our allotted episodes of Season 6 and the first episode of Season 7. We're going to divide the conversation to the Season 6 arcs and then a more baseline how we feeling so far about the Season 7 episode.
Yeah, because we only watched Season 7 episode 1.
Yes. So first up, as a follow-up to the original run of the show, we get what they called the Lost episodes on Netflix, right?
Right.
First arc is about Fives basically discovering the little biological chip in all the brains of the clones.
with like the inhibitor chip or something like that, right?
Yeah, which is heavily tied to Order 66.
Yeah, it's the Order 66 chip.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. I don't think it needed to be 4 episodes though.
Yeah, I think it was just a tad too long, but I did really like this arc. I think it was pretty interesting. I also love the droid that like hangs around the Fives.
Yeah. I'm with you because like it's cool to see Fives again in a story this long and like focusing it on this clone that we were introduced to at the start of all this. So that was really cool. I think he's the only surviving member of Domino Squad, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So
it
was a nice
surviving.
Yeah, surviving. I think like seeing it come full circle with the show focusing on clones in a way that wasn't as frequent as I was expecting, but sort of like touching base on that one more time.
It was almost
I enjoyed.
Like this arc was almost like the clones becoming self-aware, you know. It was
Yeah.
like they were like reaching their own singularity, like in this, or at least Fives was like. It's interesting because like from our perspective watching this, we're like, oh no, you know, you know like what these are for, and like you know what happens, and it's just like interesting to watch it happen, like watch them figure it out.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the scene of him confronting Palpatine?
It was kind of cheesy, to be honest.
Yeah, I was a little bummed. I thought they could have played that so suspenseful, but
yeah, it was kind of cheesy. It's interesting that like, you know, Fives figures out the truth, and then everybody thinks that he's just going crazy. Which was, you know, kind of sad to see.
Definitely. But yeah, I liked this arc. While I did feel it was a bit too long, I'm with you there. It was again touching on one of the unique aspects about this series, which is the clones, and it was a nice palate cleanser after the Ahsoka arc from last week, which was just emotionally heavy.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
This was a little more laid back in that regard.
Yep.
But yeah, out of the two. Sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask, out of the 2 arcs we watched, did you prefer this one?
I did prefer this one.
Is there any key reason before we dive into the second arc?
I don't know. I enjoyed the fact that it was just like I don't know. It wasn't a mystery to the viewer, but it was fun watching it be a mystery to clones, especially.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked it. It was it was fun to see this all unravel before their eyes.
There something else you wanted to say?
No, there wasn't.
Okay. The second arc, though. We got a Yoda arc.
Yep.
This is the first Yoda arc we have, right? Because there was the ambush episode, but that wasn't an arc, right?
It was just an episode. I don't think there was an arc. This is the first Yoda arc, though.
Yeah. So this one sees Yoda dealing with would we call it a vision still?
I don't think it's a vision. I don't think it's a vision. I don't know. It's I don't even know what to call it. It's so weird.
He gets a voicemail from Qui-Gon.
Yeah, he does. He gets a voicemail from Qui-Gon. That's a good way to put it.
And it is, I will say, it's like an okay arc, but I think the thing I thought was most interesting was other Jedi questioning Yoda. You know?
True. Like Obi-Wan and Mace Windu.
Yeah, like, you touching the dark side, Yoda? Like,
he was, though.
What is this? Yeah, which is crazy, but just like seeing them question him in that way, it was so refreshing and something I never expected.
Yeah. I agree.
But what didn't work for you? What made it less of a highlight than the first one?
I just thought it was boring, to be honest. I don't know. I couldn't get like into the whole like, oh, you're talking to death and like all of these like emotions that like aren't real. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just like very like ethereal, and like I couldn't get into it. And like I never really understood. I don't really like the whole you have to like I don't know go through all these tests before you could be before you can like live forever or something like that. I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, it's the whole idea. Like I think on paper, the idea of there needs to be specific training to become a Force ghost, I think is interesting.
Okay.
But in execution, like it seems very muddy because like Yoda does this stuff, and then at the end of Episode 3, he tells Obi-Wan, "Hey, I got some stuff for you to figure out while you're in isolation." As far as we know, Obi-Wan does not leave Tatooine, but like he goes through that process in a way. Like it's definitely muddy, and I think because of that, because there's not a solid point A to B connection with this mystery that they're trying to explain, it kind of just feels inconsequential to me.
Yeah, it's like I don't understand. Did Qui-Gon like go to this weird planet and do all these things, or did he just? I always thought that like it's just a skill that you learn over time. Like I didn't think you had to like go somewhere and get special training for it.
Yeah, I thought it was something that you could like a state you could achieve through like meditation as a Jedi or something.
Same.
And the reason it didn't fully like. The reason Qui-Gon didn't get to... I think we talked about this in like one of our first episodes. Like a Qui-Gon almost figured it out. That's why he's just the voice.
Right.
But yeah, it's like... It's something that I didn't think needed to be answered, and they didn't really answer it. So I don't know. It just... This entire season, I think, as well, kind of feels inconsequential to me.
Yeah, because I think it is. Like, it doesn't have a place. Like, it's all just mismatched socks, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. And that is because they were the unfinished episodes, and the way the show aired to begin with was out of order. So, like, who knows when these were supposed to take place?
Yeah, do we know if they have, like, a place?
I don't know personally. I think we could probably ask Jack that and see if he knows anything about it. But
yeah. Jack would know.
He would know. But yeah, it like I get it, but I feel like the ending we got in 5 was so much more solid than this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's any fault of the talent behind these episodes. I just think it's the way it all shook out,
True. I agree with you. I mean, the way that the Clone Wars episodically is like put out doesn't really make much sense to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like they just wanted to release these for convenient reasons at the time that we are not really privy to at the moment.
Yeah, and it was like, I remember when Netflix said they had, I think it was like 2013, 2012 maybe.
Okay.
I think it was a while ago. I remember when Netflix made the announcement, it was a very like feel-good announcement. It's like, hey, we get a few more episodes of Clone Wars, and people just took it. But I think what's happening with 7 is interesting because it's a little bit of the same kind of like, this was planned ahead of time, but we actually get to present a finale to it all that wasn't abrupt.
Right.
So do you want to touch on season 7, episode 1 then?
Yeah, I mean, I must say, I think I watched half of it because I fell asleep. So I wanna be transparent in that.
Sure.
But from what I did see, it was the same.
Yeah.
It just looked better.
Yeah, it is funny looking at the again leap in quality, but
major leap in quality.
Yeah, hair physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing this, I guess, is a good indicator of what to expect for the episodes that we've gotten so far, because as far as I'm aware from the people that I've talked to that have been watching season 7, it's a lot of this so far. Like an
Like
episode
filler.
that's like filler. It's like, hey, it's good. It's cool that the show's back, but what are we building to? And with this episode specifically, like, again, cool. It has a focus on clones. It doesn't sound like we get more of those for the rest of season 7,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I thought it was fine.
I thought it was. I mean, from what I saw of it, it didn't really. It was fine. Like I don't know. It just seemed like a regular old episode of the Clone Wars, with nothing really consequential happening.
Yeah, and I'm glad we kind of swept that one into this week, because where we kind of both fell down on season 6 feeling like middling, this episode as well kind of feels like, okay.
Yeah,
like
a middling kind of episode.
Yeah, because as far as I know, I think episode 2 is when Ahsoka really takes the spotlight again.
I have no idea. So we're gonna have to find out.
Yeah.
I know the Bad Batch comes back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But I guess from what you did see, like, and I guess from what you've heard about season 7, where are you at right now?
Concerned. To be honest. I don't know. They really hyped it up. And, like, from what I hear, it's kind of all just filler. So far.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too, and I'm kind of interested because, like, do you think there's two possible outcomes for this in my head? Either the final episodes of this season are basically just retelling Revenge of the Sith, which is like what we kind of hoped to an extent, but
yeah.
It's either that or it is just more of connecting Ahsoka's character to Rebels, which is fine, but I feel like you could probably still get another season out of the show at that point. So
yeah,
I wonder if we're gonna end up in a similar spot where after episode 9, when you and me were talking about it, it was like I think it was the episode of Pat when all three of us were talking about our thoughts. It was like, nobody said this had to be the end.
True.
You know?
Yeah, it might get to that point. I guess it depends on what they do in the final 4 episodes, because I would imagine that's probably an arc, right?
I would assume, yeah.
And we don't know what that's going to be. I mean, it could literally, like you said, be Revenge of the Sith. And, like, we know that, like, obviously we haven't watched all 8 episodes that have been released as of the time that we record this, but, like, we still need to see, like, the Siege of Mandalore, you know?
Yeah.
And we know from the Ahsoka book that happens during Revenge of the Sith. During Order 66.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, there's a possibility that all this is happening during Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, and we just don't know it yet.
We just don't know it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is worth noting that we still haven't seen the majority of season 7. It was just, I thought it would be a nice, like, touch base before we dive into what's there.
Yeah, so how are we doing this? How are we watching the rest of these?
So I think for next episode, we just catch up.
Oh, just watch all the rest of them?
Yes, watch everything that's out there, including the episode that releases this week.
Okay, so 8 episodes.
Yes.
All
and
right.
then from that point, we do the one a week.
All right, yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm down.
Let's catch the hell up.
Yeah, because especially, man, if that final 4 is Revenge of the Sith, we got to be watching that live.
We would be watching that live.
Yeah, that's why I want to catch up for next episode.
I'm happy that we're at least watching some of this live.
Yeah, me too. Feels good.
Yeah, it does feel good.
Well,
it's an achievement, that's for sure.
Yeah. And again, would not have been possible without Jack's guide.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jack Martin.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps up this week's episode.
I think so.
Jedi Knights.
Yeah.
So Mike, if anyone listening would like to find you, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Chris N. Buckley. If you are watching us, you're on youtube.com/joyclicks, where there is other content coming up as well, other podcasts, lots of gaming stuff. Like we shouted out earlier, twitch.tv/joyclicks if you want to catch some live streams, maybe some Star Wars games coming up.
Ooh.
You can do that. But if you're listening to the show, you're on audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any of the ones on Google. If you have the ability to rate or review us on the platform of your choosing, it would be greatly appreciated if you did so. So the show reaches more people. We can all celebrate the end of Clone Wars together.
Absolutely.
And have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to watch the rest of these.
Me too. I have high standards right now.
I got high hopes.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's how we're ending it.
That's how we're ending
it. Until next week, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
General Kenobi.